Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Stephen Brown, and in today's video, like I said in the last one, I didn't want to leave you guys hanging for too long, which is hanging on to hopes and prayers that the goaltending would improve. There are other things that the Maple Leafs can do to improve their team. So in today's video, I want to talk about them. But before we get into them, I just wanted to reiterate the point that I wanted to make in yesterday's video, and that's no matter what changes the Maple Leafs make on their blue line, they're not going to be able to overcome Frederik Andersen having a .900 save percentage since the beginning of December, which includes a stretch where the team won 10 out of 13 games in that month. But before we get into the actual moves and things that the Maple Leafs can take advantage of to make their team better, we need to discuss order of operations. And the order of operations for the Maple Leafs right now seems to be evaluating the health of Morgan Rielly and Cody Ceci before they make any legitimate changes to this team, which was reported by Elliot Friedman on last Saturday's headlines. I don't know why Cody Ceci is holding up any of this decision making, but if they want to include him in that, go ahead. But if you had to ask me what the order of operations is looking like for the Toronto Maple Leafs right now, I would say step 1, evaluating the health of Morgan Rielly. Step 2, signing Jake Muzzin to a contract extension. That's got to be something that happens before the deadline because that affects the type of trades and the type of players that they would target at the deadline. And then third, fine, if you want to throw Cody Ceci in there, throw Cody Ceci in there. Now, they don't need an actual physical extension done with Jake Muzzin by the trade deadline, but they need to be making progress on it. They need to be at least more than halfway there. They need to figure out what the term is, because Jake Muzzin more than likely wants 5 or more years, and the Maple Leafs want to do something like 3 or 4 years. If you want a more detailed analytical look at the contract extension that I'm proposing to Jake Muzzin, you can take a look at it. It's in the latter half of the video that I'm going to be linking to on the screen right now. But my proposed contract extension to Jake Muzzin is anywhere between $6.5 to $6.75 million for 4 seasons. But if you want a little bit of a break from the stressful Leafs talk, here's a picture from Kristen Shelton's Twitter, a beat reporter for the Toronto Maple Leafs, of Ilya Mikheyev on the ice talking to Morgan Rielly on the other side of it. It's so great to see Suitman back in action and at least getting some practice in. But his timetable, still unknown, more than likely going to be back towards the end of the season, if not round 1, game 1 of the playoffs. Now, this is basically the scope of things heading into the trade deadline. This is a 23-man roster, and you're going to look at that $6.5 million number in the top right-hand corner, and you're going to be a little bit confused about it. But I am going to explain everything, don't you worry. But yes, the Maple Leafs could theoretically add a player making between $6.5 to $7 million this trade deadline. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into the LTIR shenanigans that the Maple Leafs have been pulling this year because they've been doing it once a day, basically, for the entire season, where they're shuttling players up and down to keep adding to their LTIR threshold so that come the trade deadline, they have the most possible cap space to work with. Because the way LTIR works is it's a threshold, and the more of it that you use, the more of it that you have access to later on. And I know most of us are just average hockey fans and we just want to watch the game and stuff like that, but I'm a huge geek, I'm a huge nerd, I love that kind of stuff. I spent 2 hours trying to figure out why they reacquired David Clarkson, and if you take the time to understand why they actually did it, it's pure genius. The question gets tossed around often, what do NHL GMs do all day if they're not wagering trades or negotiating contract extensions? Well, for some teams, it's easier to speak for than others, and with the Maple Leafs and Kyle Dubas and Brandon Pridham, they are working diligently every single day to make sure that they have every single last dollar available to them come trade deadline day. You guys want a hot take? I'll throw you a hot take. Cody Ceci never plays a game for the Toronto Maple Leafs ever again. And I'm going to explain why right now, and trust me, you're going to love it, because in 2015, it really pissed off Jeremy Jacobs, the owner of the Boston Bruins, and anything that pisses him off on Game 4 any day of the week. So the scene is February 25th, 2015. Patrick Kane gets shoved into the end boards and breaks his collarbone. He's going to miss 10 weeks, and they're not even sure if he's going to be back in time for the start of the playoffs or not. The Blackhawks are in trouble, but they're having a really good season, and they're going to make the playoffs. So what do the Blackhawks and Stan Bowman do? Well, they go out and they acquire Kimmo Timonen, Antoine Vermette, and Andrew Desjardins. And the interesting thing about that is that the 3 players that they acquired on deadline day in Timonen, Vermette, and Desjardins equal about the same cap hit that Patrick Kane carried. But the thing that you should remember about those Blackhawks teams is that they were always within $10 of the salary cap at any given time. So how did they add that? Well, they placed Patrick Kane on LTIR, and then Patrick Kane started to get better towards the end of the season, and Patrick Kane was like, okay, guys, I'm ready to come back. And the Blackhawks are like, no, you're not. You're going to stay injured for another week or so. And Patrick Kane was like, but I'm ready to go. And they're like, no. We don't have any salary cap left to activate you. But if you wait another week or so, return game 1, round 1 of the playoffs, the salary cap no longer counts anymore. So they held Patrick Kane out for the last week of the season, or however many games that he missed. So they held Patrick Kane out for however many games healthy, and he returned round 1, game 1 of the playoffs, and as history shows it, they won the Stanley Cup that year. Well, Jeremy Jacobs stood up at an NHL owners boards meeting with Gary Bettman in it and accused the Blackhawks of holding Patrick Kane out even though he was healthy to manipulate the salary cap. So at that point, it's Jeremy Jacobs' words against the Chicago Blackhawks, and who's to say if Patrick Kane's collarbone was in game-ready shape or not? I mean, it's not like NHL teams have third-party or league-provided doctors. All the doctors are team-provided. So all Patrick Kane has to do is say, my collarbone's not ready, and the doctors are like, oh, okay. And with an asset and a player like Morgan Riley, I don't know if I would hold him out of games. If he's ready to come back 2 weeks before the season ends, just activate him at that point. But if he's not ready to go, take advantage of it. But with a player like Cody Ceci, yeah, definitely, buddy, just take your skates and go home. The Leafs have done this before. They did it with Alex Stalock in the 2016 season, and they did it with Jared Cowan. Now, what they do with said $6 to $7 million in cap space come the trade deadline, I don't know. Do they move Kasperi Kapanen? I don't know. Do they move Andreas Johnsson? I don't know. Do they move Alexander Kerfoot? I don't know. Do they move Tyson Barrie? I don't know. Tyson Barrie is an interesting one because, like I proposed in a couple of videos ago, you could include Tyson Barrie in a bigger trade to soften the acquisition cost for a defenseman who's equally as skilled, or maybe has a different skill set, maybe who someone is a little bit more defensively minded than him. Tyson Barrie, to me, is a really interesting case because, like I said a couple of videos ago, he's in a unique situation where he's going to be a UFA at the end of this season. And if we know anything from watching Kyle Dubas do work, he's not a fan of just losing out on an asset and getting nothing for that player. I mean, the guy's trading away prospects that you've never even heard of for 7th round picks. What makes you think he's going to let Tyson Barrie walk away without getting anything back for him? So you include Tyson Barrie in a 3-team trade to soften the acquisition cost to acquire that defenseman that better suits your team and that has term left on his deal, just like the Colorado Avalanche did with Matt Duchene, the Ottawa Senators, and the Nashville Predators a couple of seasons ago. Say what you will about Tyson Barrie, but Kevin Shattenkirk fetched a 1st-round pick a couple of seasons ago, and they're pretty similar players. So whatever defenseman they hypothetically could trade for, a trade package that includes Tyson Barrie and one of Andreas Johnsson, Kasperi Kapanen, or Alexander Kerfoot, and then maybe a pick thrown on top of it, should get the Maple Leafs the defenseman that we've all been looking for. Which defenseman is even available, and which defenseman are they even looking at? Well, I made a video looking at 5 specific defensemen and making a case for each of them a little while ago. I'll link to it. But that's going to be it for this video, guys. Leave me a like if you did enjoy, and subscribe for more because more is always on the way. And guys, remember, the Toronto Maple Leafs are still making the playoffs this year.